Let go of me, David. I screamed, my fingernails clawing against the cold, wet railing of the bridge. The night air was sharp, biting through my thin blouse. Beneath me, the rushing river roared like it was hungry, waiting for me to fall. My husband's hands tightened on my arms, shoving me closer to the edge. His eyes burned with a mixture of rage and something darker, relief. "Stop fighting me, Monica," he hissed, his breath hot and sour in my ear. "You were never supposed to know about her. But now you're in the way." Her. That word cut deeper than his grip. Her. The mistress. I had suspected for months. The late nights. The phone he kept face down on the table. The sudden bursts of laughter in the bathroom. I thought he was just stressed. I thought it was work. I thought maybe it was me. But tonight, it all came crashing down. I followed him. I saw them together. And when I confronted him by the bridge, instead of shame, instead of apologies, he pushed me. My shoes slipped against the wet concrete. My body lurched forward. I screamed, grabbing the railing with all the strength left in me. The world blurred between the icy black water below and his furious face above. "David, please," I cried, my voice breaking. "Think about our son." For the first time, his face twisted, not with guilt, but with hesitation. The sound of cars in the distance, headlights sweeping across the bridge, made him freeze. He stepped back, his chest heaving. I collapsed against the railing, shaking, my throat raw. He looked at me one last time, like I was nothing more than a burden, and whispered, "You should have just stayed quiet." Then he turned and walked away, leaving me clinging to life. And in that moment, I realized, I was already dead to him. When I finally made it home, drenched in sweat and fear, I locked myself in the bathroom and stared at my reflection. My eyes were swollen, my lips trembling. I couldn't believe this was my life. I had been married to him for 10 years. We had a son together. I gave up my career for his dreams. I supported him when he had nothing. And tonight, he tried to kill me because of a mistress. The betrayal cut deeper than the attempted murder. Because it meant every smile, every kiss, every whispered, "I love you," had been a lie. I slid down against the bathroom tiles, hugging my knees, tears streaming down my face. The sound of my son's soft snoring from his room gave me the only reason to stay strong. If not for me, then for him. But as I sat there, broken and trembling, one thought burned hotter than the tears in my eyes. David thought I was weak. He thought I'd stay quiet. He thought I'd let him destroy me. But he didn't know what I still had. My inheritance. The land. The money my late father left me. It was mine. And tomorrow, I would take it all back. Because if David wanted me gone, then I'd make sure he was the one left with nothing. The next morning, I watched him at the breakfast table. He sat there, scrolling through his phone, pretending nothing had happened. His shirt was crisp, his cologne strong, his voice casual when he asked, "You're quiet this morning." "Didn't sleep." I stared at him, my spoon frozen in the bowl of porridge I had made for our son. The nerve of this man. Acting like he didn't nearly throw me into the river. Acting like he wasn't sneaking around with another woman. He didn't even flinch when our son kissed me on the cheek and left for school. The hypocrisy made me sick. "David," I said, my voice calm. Too calm. He looked up, raising an eyebrow. "Yes." I smiled faintly. "Nothing. Just thinking about my father today. He always said a woman should never put her future in a man's hands." His face twitched. Just a flicker. He didn't like when I mentioned my inheritance. He liked to pretend it didn't exist, even though he benefited from it every day. And that was the moment I knew, this battle wouldn't be fought with screams, fists, or tears. It would be fought with silence, patience, and paperwork. But first, I had to find out everything. About him. About her. About their plans. Because if David wanted war, he just declared it. That evening, I followed him again. He thought I was at home, cooking dinner. But I was sitting in my car, across the street from the fancy hotel he walked into. And not long after, she arrived. The mistress. Tall. Slim. Perfectly dressed. With long braids swinging as she laughed on her way inside. I felt a burn in my chest, but I didn't cry this time. I just watched. My hand tightened on the steering wheel. The betrayal was real. The danger was real. But so was my resolve. Because tomorrow, David would learn something he had forgotten. I wasn't just his wife. I was a woman with power. And I was about to use it. As I sat in the car, gripping the wheel, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. I unlocked it, and my blood ran cold. It was a photo of me on the bridge last night, clinging to the railing. And the text read, "Next time, you won't survive." Viewers, what would you do if you discovered your own husband tried to push you off a bridge because of another woman? Would you walk away silently or fight back with everything you had? Let me know in the comments. And tell me, where are you watching from right now? The second text came while I was still staring at the first one. Delete this and pretend you didn't see it. Next time, nobody will pull you off that railing. I locked my phone with shaking fingers and listened. The apartment in Lekki Phase 1 was too quiet, like the walls were holding their breath with me. From down the hall, the shower hissed. David was getting ready like nothing had happened on the bridge. Like he hadn't shoved me toward the dark water under the Lekki-Ikoyi link bridge and told me to stay quiet. I breathed in and out, counting slowly. This wasn't a nightmare. This was domestic betrayal, infidelity, and a death threat sitting in my inbox. I put the phone on airplane mode, then snapped photos of the messages with my old backup phone. Evidence. I took a picture of the bruises around my wrists, the faint red lines where the railing had scraped my skin. Evidence. I opened the Notes app and typed, "David tried to push me over the bridge last night. 9:37 p.m., rain on the road, black water below, his breath in my ear." Evidence. The shower stopped. I wiped my face, straightened my blouse, and moved to the kitchen. When he walked in, he looked brand new, fresh haircut, tailored navy suit, polished shoes, cologne like an expensive lie. "Morning," he said, kissing the air near my cheek. "Morning," I answered, still and careful. He poured coffee, scrolled, and smirked at something on his screen. The Mistress. I could feel it in the way his thumb moved. Our son padded in, hair messy, school bag half-zipped. "Mummy, can you help me tie my laces?" "Of course," I said, kneeling. "Double knot." David watched us for a beat, then cleared his throat. "There's a client dinner tonight. Don't wait up." Client dinner. Hotel. Laughing in the lobby. My jaw tightened, but I kept my voice flat. "Drive safe." He left without another word, the door closing like a line being drawn through us. I took Tenny to school. On the way back, I called Amara. "Where are you?" she asked, voice already sharp. "You texted me late." I couldn't sleep. "In the Uber," I said. He tried to push me off the bridge. There was a silence that sounded like a scream. "Monica, where are you now?" "Go to the police." "I will," I said. "But first, the lawyer. If he wanted me gone, it's because of my inheritance. He's after my father's land and the money. I have to close every door before he comes through." "I'm meeting you," she said. "Don't argue." Barrister Okoye's office was on Victoria Island, 6th floor, glass walls that watched traffic crawl below. He was tall, grey at the temples, voice quiet but firm. He'd handled my father's estate when he passed. He knew the story of everything I owned. "Monica," he said gently, "tell me everything." I did. The late nights. The hotel. The bridge. The text. His lips pressed into a thin line. "We will file for a protection order," he said. "We will also put legal locks on your assets. Your father was very wise. He kept your inheritance in your name and out of marital property. But wisdom still needs action." He slid a form toward me. "This makes me trustee on an emergency basis for your father's land in Abeokuta and the treasury bills in your name. We'll move the instruments into a protected trust for you and Tenny. Only your signature and mine, no spousal access. No lien. No encumbrance. Today." My hands steadied as I signed. "Do it." He flipped another file. "The Lekki apartment, titled solely to you. We'll place a caveat at the land registry. If anyone attempts a fraudulent transfer, the system flags it and calls me." I swallowed. Anyone like David? He didn't smile. Or anyone using his name. We finished the paperwork, and he handed me a typed list. "Now go to the bank. Freeze any joint accounts, remove him as beneficiary on your life policies, and open a fresh account in a different bank. You will need a new device and new email tied to it. Buy a basic phone with no cloud sync. And Monica, until we get the protection order, do not be alone with him in any closed place. Not the house. Not the car. Understood." When I stepped out of the elevator, Amara was waiting with a fierce hug and a carry bag. "Protein bars, water, pepper spray, and a new hoodie," she said. "You always keep giving. Today you take." We took a bolt to the bank on Odeola Odiku. I sat with the branch manager, Mrs. Bello, who had watched me fill deposit slips for years. "What's wrong?" she asked softly, reading the printouts from Barrister Okoye. "My husband is not safe," I said. "I need to protect my inheritance and myself." She nodded like she'd been waiting to hear truth. "We'll place a temporary freeze on your joint savings pending your instruction, and we'll remove him as the beneficiary on your money market account. For the T-bills, we need trustee documentation," she glanced at the top sheet. "Ah. From Barrister Okoye. Perfect." She looked up. "And a new account?" "Yes. New phone number. New email." She typed, clicked, printed, stamped. "Done. I'll set transaction alerts to your new number only. I'll also add a note, no phone instructions accepted on these accounts. In branch only, with ID." "Thank you," I whispered. I walked out into the Lagos sun feeling taller. The traffic roared. People honked and hustled and laughed. Life kept moving, even when yours felt like it had been pushed to the edge. We bought a basic phone at a stall and a new SIM at a kiosk. I saved the bank numbers, the lawyer's number, and Amara's as ICE. Then I did something that made my throat burn. I opened a new email address with my maiden name. A small thing that felt like a flag in the ground. My name. My life. We stopped for jollof at a small restaurant on Akin Adesela. I could barely swallow, but Amara kept talking about ordinary things, making the world feel less sharp. "Can I tell you something?" she asked, quieter now. 2 weeks ago, I saw David at Twin Waters. He wasn't alone. I didn't ask who. I didn't ask what they looked like. I already knew. "He wants me gone," I said. "Not divorced, gone. Then we make sure you stay," she said. "And we make sure he doesn't touch a naira that belongs to you." My new phone buzzed. An unknown number. For a second, I froze. Then I remembered, this was the number only 3 people knew. "Hello." A male voice, careful and low. "Is this Monica? Who is this?" "My name is Claude. I'm a driver. I sometimes pick up Mr. David." I got your number from someone who said you needed to know something. Every muscle in my body went tight. I'm listening. They've been talking about money, he said. Big money. He said there's land and fixed deposits and that he's close to unlocking it. That's the word he used. He told a man named Femi that by the end of this month, he'd settle what he owes. What does he owe? Millions, the driver said simply. I don't know the details, Ma. But I know that last week, he went to the land registry with a woman and tried to file something. They were turned back because the title was in your name alone. The room tilted for a second, hot tears pricking my eyes. Not grief, not yet, but fury that tasted like metal. Thank you, Claude, I said. Thank you for telling me. He hesitated. Ma, they talk careless in the back seat. Last night, he said. If she had just fallen, everything would be easy. The fork slipped from my fingers onto the plate. The clatter felt too loud. I ended the call and stared at Amara. He owes people. He tried to move the land. He said if I had fallen. Amara reached across, gripped my hand. Then we moved faster. We left the restaurant. I stopped at a pharmacy for wrist support and concealer. No one would see me break. Not in front of him. Not in front of anyone. On the way to pick up Tenny, I bought 2 small Wi-Fi cameras from a tech shop. One for the living room, one for the hallway. I bought a voice recorder shaped like a key fob. Evidence doesn't lie. Evidence doesn't forget. At school, Tenny ran into my arms like he always did, sunshine in sneakers. Mummy, we learned about bridges today. The world spun around a single word. I forced a smile. Bridges are strong because they have support. Remember that. Are you okay? He asked, touching my bandaged wrist. I'm strong, I said. And you are safe. We reached the apartment before David. I hid one camera behind a plant and fixed the other above the bookshelf. I slid the recorder into a bowl of house keys. I opened the windows a little so the neighbors could hear if I screamed. I set my new phone to auto-upload video backups on a cloud drive. Then I cooked, because Nigerians will tell you, when the house is burning, rice still boils. Keeping Tenny's routine steady was the only way not to drown. At 7:42 p.m., David's key turned. He walked in with a paper bag of takeout and a smile like a knife. For the family, he said, dropping a kiss on Tenny's head. How was school, champ? Good, Tenny said. David glanced at me. You look tired. Everything okay? Everything is fine, I said. The recorder blinked underneath his palm where he'd tossed his keys. We ate. He told a story about a difficult client. I nodded at all the right places. My bandaged wrist twitched. He leaned back. I'll be late tomorrow too. With the same client? I asked. He laughed softly. Don't start. I didn't, I said, eyes on my plate. You did. For a moment, the air between us turned heavy. Tenny asked for more stew. The moment fell away. After dinner, David took a call on the balcony. The glass door was closed, but his voice got sharper, and some words pushed through. Deadline, shortfall, not my problem, she'll sign. No, I thought. She won't. At 10:21 p.m., my new email pinged. The land registry had processed the caveat from Barrister Okoye. Any transfer attempt would trigger an alert. I forwarded the notice to the lawyer and to my new secure drive. One door locked. Many more to go. When David finally slept, I sat on the edge of the bed and watched the man I used to love. He looked peaceful. He also looked like a stranger wearing my husband's face. I remembered our wedding day in Suralere, the white dress, the dancing, the thunderstorm that almost drowned the music but couldn't drown our laughter. I remembered holding Tenny for the first time, tiny fingers curled around my thumb. I remembered the promises we made. Love. Honor. Protect. The words felt like ashes now. Somewhere after midnight, my new phone buzzed again. A different, unknown number. I thought of Claude. I thought of the driver's warning. I thought of my son asleep in the next room. I opened the message. A video. I pressed play and the hotel's lobby bloomed on my screen. David sat with the mistress. Long braids, red dress, gold heels kicked off under the table. He was laughing, hand on her thigh. The camera moved closer, like someone hiding behind a column. The audio was fuzzy, then suddenly clear. Once it's in my company's name, David said, there's nothing she can do. That land is the real ticket. The rest, small change. The mistress's voice was cold sugar. And the wife. She's soft, he said. She'll break. The video cut out. My hand shook so hard I almost dropped the phone. I typed back. Who are you? 3 dots. They vanished. 3 dots again. Then a reply. Someone who thinks you should check the nursery before dawn. The nursery. Tennis room. I stood up, fighting the urge to run and wake my son this second. Was this a threat? A warning? I looked at the camera feed on my screen. Tenny asleep, blankets half kicked off, the glow-in-the-dark stars we stuck to the ceiling still glowing like patient fireflies. I stared at the hallway camera. Nothing. Living room camera. Nothing. Balcony camera, that one didn't exist. I wished it did. I walked to the corridor and paused by our bedroom door. David shifted in his sleep. For a second, his expression turned hard, like he was pushing against wind. I moved silently to Tenny's room and opened the door an inch. My heart slowed when I saw him breathing steady. Safe. I was about to close the door when my toe hit something on the mat. Small, metal, wrong. I bent down and picked it up. A tiny black square with a blinking red dot. Not a toy. Not a button. A listening bug. My mouth went dry. Someone had planted it in my child's room. I stood there, cold from the inside out, the sound of the city fading until all I could hear was my own heartbeat. And then soft blue and red washed across the ceiling through the window. Lights that didn't belong to passing cars. They stopped. Doors slammed. Feet on the stairs. Knock. 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 Hard. Official. Open up. Lagos State Police. I froze with the bug in my hand as David's voice rose behind me, rough with sleep and something like triumph. Officers. Thank God you're here. She's unstable and she's threatened me, and my son. The pounding on the door echoed like thunder through the apartment. Open up. The officer's voice was firm, commanding, and impossible to ignore. I stood in the hallway clutching the tiny listening device, my heart slamming against my ribs. My son's soft breathing from the nursery behind me felt like the only sound worth protecting. But then David appeared, his shirt half buttoned, face twisted into a performance of fear. Finally! He exclaimed, rushing toward the door like a desperate husband seeking protection. Officers, please, she's unstable. She's been threatening me and the boy. My knees almost buckled. The audacity. The betrayal. He wasn't just cheating and plotting. He was trying to turn the law against me. The officers pushed inside. 2 men, 1 woman. Their eyes swept the room, then landed on me in the corridor, my hand still holding the bug. My lips parted, but before I could speak, David pointed dramatically at me. There, he shouted. Look at her wrist, she cut herself. She's dangerous. I caught her planting things in my son's room. The woman officer frowned. Madam, what are you holding? I lifted the small black device into the light. This, I said, my voice low but steady, was in my child's room. Someone is spying on us. The two male officers exchanged a look. One stepped forward and took it from me, turning it over in his palm. "This is a transmitter," he confirmed. His eyes narrowed at David. "And how did this get here?" David's laugh was sharp, fake, too quick. "Exactly. That's what I've been saying. She planted it herself, to set me up. She's been..." "Enough." The woman officer cut him off. Her eyes hadn't left my face. "Madam, we'll need you to come with us and give a statement. Both of you." My stomach twisted. If we both went down to the station, David would spin his lies faster than I could open my mouth. He'd make me look like the unstable wife. He'd make sure Tenny ended up in his custody, or worse, in danger. "I will come," I said carefully, "but first, someone needs to stay with my son. He is innocent in all of this." The officer nodded. "We'll assign someone to remain with him." David's jaw tightened. Just a flicker. He hadn't expected me to hold steady. He wanted chaos. He wanted me broken, wild, screaming. Instead, I was calm. And that scared him more. At the station, the air reeked of sweat, cigarettes, and paperwork. We sat on opposite sides of a scarred desk. The officer in charge, a thick-set man with a deep voice, asked us to recount what happened. David went first. His performance was Oscar-worthy. He spoke of a paranoid wife, of imagined mistresses, of suicidal behavior by the bridge. He twisted the truth so smoothly. The younger officer was nodding along before he even finished. When it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg. I laid out the facts. The attempt on the bridge, the text messages, the freeze on my accounts, the bug in my son's room. Then I handed over my backup phone with the photos, the screenshots, the timestamps. "Look at the bruises on my wrist," I said softly, rolling up my sleeve. "Look at the message. Next time, you won't survive. Look at the device found in my child's room." The thick-set officer's eyes flicked between us. He tapped the desk, then leaned back. "Mr. David, until this is investigated, you will not approach your wife without police present. Madam, you will get a protective order tomorrow. For now, go home separately." David exploded. "This is madness. She's..." "Enough," the officer barked. "One more word and you'll be in a holding cell tonight." For the first time, David's mask cracked. His lips pressed into a hard line. He knew he had lost this round. Outside, the night air felt like freedom and fear tangled together. Amara was waiting by her car, eyes sharp. She hugged me, whispered, "You did well," and then said aloud, "Come, we're not going back to that apartment tonight." We drove to her flat in Suralere. It was small, warm, filled with the smell of plantain chips and books. Tenny curled up on the couch, hugging his stuffed lion, too tired to ask questions. I sat on the balcony with Amara, the city buzzing below us, headlights sliding past like restless ghosts. "He's going to come harder now," I said. "Then we'll be ready," she replied. "We'll gather more proof, more allies. Do you know what leverage does to a man like him?" "What?" "It breaks him," she said simply. I held my phone, staring at the videos from the cameras I had installed. David didn't know yet that I had footage of him on the balcony, saying, "She'll sign," to someone over the phone. That was leverage. And then my new email pinged. Another video. This time, inside a car. David again, with the Mistress, her laugh dripping like poison. "If she goes missing, no one will suspect. Everyone thinks she's depressed anyway. We'll have it all." My throat closed. The betrayal wasn't just about love anymore. It was about life, death, and money. I turned to Amara, my voice hard. "If he wants war, he'll get it. But this time, I won't fight fair." At dawn, my phone rang again. It was Barrister Okoye. His voice was tight, urgent. "Monica," he said, "I just received notice. Your husband filed an emergency motion this morning to claim custody of Tenny, citing you as unfit. The hearing is tomorrow." I froze, the phone slipping in my sweaty palm. He wasn't just after my money. He was after my son. Viewers, what would you do if your cheating husband not only tried to kill you but also went to court to take your child away? Would you run, or would you fight back with everything you had? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter of this story. The courtroom smelled of old wood, dust, and tension. Every eye was on me as I sat on the plaintiff's side, my palms damp, my heart pounding so hard I was sure the whole court could hear it. David sat across from me, dressed in a perfectly tailored gray suit. His mistress was there too, pretending to be a family friend, her red lips pressed in a tight line, her eyes gleaming with victory. My stomach twisted. They weren't just after my inheritance anymore. They wanted my son. The judge, an older black woman with sharp glasses perched on her nose, cleared her throat. "This emergency custody hearing has been filed under urgent circumstances. Mr. David claims his wife, Monica, is unstable, violent, and unfit to raise their child. Mrs. Monica claims her husband attempted to harm her and is after her inheritance. We will hear both sides." The lies started immediately. "Your Honor," David said smoothly, rising to his feet, "my wife has been erratic for months. She's been sending me threatening texts, stalking me, and last week she tried to harm herself by the bridge. I saved her life." My fists clenched. He was turning the truth upside down. The judge tilted her head. "Do you have evidence?" David smirked. "Yes, Your Honor." He pulled out his phone, projecting photos of me on the bridge, taken from behind. My body clinging to the railing, hair wild, rain pouring. They made it look like I was about to jump. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Even the judge leaned forward. "This is my proof," David continued, his voice low and steady. "She endangered herself, and by extension, our son. I fear for his safety." I wanted to scream, but Barrister Okoye put a hand on my arm, grounding me. "Patience," he whispered. When it was my turn, I stood, my voice shaking at first but then growing stronger. "Your Honor, what you are seeing is not me attempting to take my life. That was my husband attempting to push me." The judge's eyes narrowed. "Do you have evidence?" "Yes," I said. "Multiple forms." Okoye presented the photos I had taken of my bruised wrists, the threatening text message. "Next time, you won't survive." Then he produced the small listening bug, tagged and bagged by the police. "Your Honor, this device was found in their child's room," he said firmly. "Planted by persons unknown. And here," he tapped a USB stick, "is video footage from inside the defendant's home, captured legally by my client, who feared for her safety." The screen flickered. The footage rolled. David's voice filled the courtroom. "She'll sign. She's soft. She'll break." A collective gasp. His mistress shifted uncomfortably in her seat. The judge's eyebrows shot up. "Mr. David, is that your voice?" David's mask cracked, but he forced a laugh. "Anyone can fake a video. This is ridiculous." But then came the second clip. Him in the car with the mistress laughing. "Once it's in my company's name, there's nothing she can do. The wife. She'll break." The courtroom erupted. Reporters scribbled notes. Phones clicked. The mistress tried to cover her face with her hands. The judge slammed her gavel. "Order." When the noise settled, she looked at David like he was a man already buried. "Mr. David, this court does not tolerate deceit. The evidence clearly contradicts your claims. Until a full trial is scheduled, custody remains with the mother." And Mr. David, you are hereby ordered not to approach Mrs. Monica or her son outside supervised visitation. Bailiff, escort them out. David's face twisted into something feral. He leaned across the table, his voice low but venomous, just loud enough for me to hear. This isn't over, Monica. You just made a very powerful enemy. I didn't flinch. I met his eyes and whispered back. No. I just exposed one. After court, reporters swarmed like bees outside. Microphones thrust into my face. Mrs. Monica, how does it feel to win custody? Do you fear for your life? What do you have to say about the mistress? I kept my answers short. The truth will always win. My focus is my son. But inside, my chest was still tight. Because victories in court didn't stop bullets in the street. David was cornered now, and cornered men were dangerous. Back at Amara's apartment, I held Tenny close, breathing in the scent of his hair. He was safe for now. That was all that mattered. But the threats weren't done. At midnight, my new phone buzzed again. A single message. You may have the boy today. But tomorrow, you'll pay. I jumped as glass shattered in the living room. Amara screamed. Tenny woke up crying. When I rushed out, a brick lay on the floor, wrapped in paper. The note tied around it said in thick black marker, "Leave the city, or we finish what we started." The brick sat on the living room floor like a bomb that hadn't gone off. The note tied around it still fluttered from the wind that blew in through the broken window. "Leave the city, or we finish what we started." Amara stood frozen in the hallway, her hand covering her mouth. Tenny clutched my waist, crying into my nightgown. My whole body shook, not from the glass scattered on the floor, but from the knowledge that David was willing to escalate. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was war. I bent, picked up the brick with a tissue, and shoved it into a bag. "Evidence," I whispered to myself. My voice was shaking, but my mind was clear. If David wanted to scare me into running, he didn't know me at all. Amara's voice trembled. "Monica, maybe we should go. At least for the night." I shook my head. "If I run now, I'll be running forever." "No." He tried to push me off a bridge. He planted a bug in my son's room. He sent men to throw bricks through windows. He thinks he can break me. But now I'll show him. I can break him instead. The next morning, I met Barrister Okoye at his office again. He looked at the brick wrapped in plastic. His lips pressed into a tight line. "This is more than harassment now," he said. "This is criminal intimidation. We'll involve the police, but we'll also move faster on the financial side. The law moves slow, but money moves fast." He pushed forward a folder. "I've already filed to secure your inheritance. Now, we'll freeze every account he's touched. He cannot pay his debts, he cannot fund his mistress, he cannot breathe without the cash flow he leeches from you." I swallowed, staring at the documents. What happens when he finds out? Okoye met my eyes. "Then he'll be desperate. And desperate men make mistakes." That same day, I went to Zenith Bank with Amara. The manager, Mrs. Bello, already knew what to do. She watched me sign the paperwork with a grim nod. "His access is gone," she confirmed. "As of today, every card, every transfer, every loan tied to your accounts is frozen. He cannot touch 1 naira that isn't his." I exhaled slowly, the weight in my chest easing just a little. "Thank you. Be careful," she warned softly. "Men like this don't give up, they lash out." That evening, I returned to Amara's apartment to find my son laughing for the first time in days. He was building towers with her nephew, giggling as the blocks crashed. For a moment, I let myself breathe. But the peace didn't last. At 9 p.m., my phone buzzed with a new message from another unknown number. A photo. David, sitting in a bar, glass in hand, looking wild-eyed. The caption read, "You think you won? Watch what happens when a man has nothing left to lose." My blood turned cold. The following morning, the cracks began to show. David's company car was repossessed. His credit cards stopped working. One of his friends, a man named Femi, stormed into the apartment building demanding payment. According to the concierge, David shouted, "I'll get it, just give me time," before slamming the door. By noon, gossip started spreading online. Someone had leaked part of the court video, the clip of David's voice saying, "She'll sign. She's soft. She'll break." The comments were brutal. "Imagine trying to steal from your wife. This man is a disgrace. Cheating is one thing, but plotting against her? Evil." By evening, hashtags with his name trended in Lagos Twitter. His polished image as a businessman was unraveling. But instead of retreating, David struck back. At 11:30 that night, Amora's intercom buzzed. "Delivery for Monica." I froze. I hadn't ordered anything. Amora peered out through the peephole. A man in a delivery cap stood holding a small package. But something about the way his eyes darted to the hallway camera made her whisper, "Something's off." We didn't open the door. The man lingered for 5 minutes, then left the package outside. When we finally checked, the box was empty, except for a single wedding photo of me and David, the glass frame smashed, and a red X scrawled across my face. Tenny woke in the night screaming, "Mummy, don't let Daddy push you." My arms ached from holding him until he fell back asleep. I knew then, I couldn't just defend myself. I had to go on the offensive. The next day, Okoye called with news that almost made me collapse with relief. "Monica," he said, "I've uncovered something big. Your husband's debts are not just personal, they're criminal. He borrowed from loan sharks and signed under his company's name, listing your inheritance land as collateral. Fraudulent, of course, since the land is not his. But it means if we press charges, he could face prison." My breath caught. Prison. Yes. But it also means he's more dangerous than ever. He knows if this gets out, his life as he knows it is over. I nodded slowly. Then that's exactly what we'll do. If he wanted me destroyed, I'll destroy him first. That evening, while scrolling online, I found something that made my stomach drop. A photo of David and the Mistress at a luxury hotel rooftop, posted on her Instagram with the caption, "Power couple. Nothing can break us." The comments tore into her. "Homewrecker. Shameless. Wait until the wife takes everything." But the photo wasn't what scared me. It was the timestamp. She had posted it just minutes before. And the hotel? It was 2 blocks away. I ran to the balcony and froze. Across the street, on the rooftop of the very hotel, I saw them, David and his mistress. And then, like he knew exactly where I was, David lifted his glass in my direction and mouthed 2 chilling words. "You're next." Viewers, if your cheating husband was collapsing financially, turning violent, and publicly threatening you, would you run for safety, or stand your ground and fight back? Comment below, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next explosive chapter. The glass glinted in the rooftop lights as David raised it like a toast. His mistress leaned on his arm, smirking down at me as if she already knew how the story would end. My stomach dropped, but I didn't move from Amara's balcony. I let him see me. Let him think he still had the power. Inside, though, a fire was burning. He wanted me afraid. He wanted me desperate. Instead, I was steady, cold, and ready to move. I closed the balcony door, pulled the curtains tight, and sat down with my phone. Enough reacting. Tonight, I would start planning. At dawn, I met Barrister Okoye again. He was already poring through files. "Monica," he said, eyes sharp. The financial trail is worse than we thought. Your husband forged signatures to take loans. He put your father's land title number in documents that could land him in jail. Good, I whispered. Then jail is where he belongs. But Okoye leaned forward. It's not that simple. If he knows prison is coming, he may not go down quietly. He could try to drag you with him. We need to build your safety net before we strike. What kind of safety net? He slid me a list. Transfer all liquid funds to the protected trust. Change guardianship papers for your son in case anything happens to you. Collect ironclad evidence, videos, recordings, financial records. Enough to bury him twice. Once we have all three, Okoye said, we pull the trigger. Until then, silence. Back at Amara's flat, I called Claude, the driver who had first warned me. Ma, he said softly. They're restless. I drove him yesterday. He kept saying you were making him look like a fool. He said he doesn't care about the law. He'll finish it his own way. My grip on the phone tightened. Where is he now? At the hotel with that woman. But Ma, listen. He's also been meeting with some very dangerous people. Men you don't want near your son. Thank you, Claude, I said, voice steady though my hands were trembling. Keep your eyes open. And be careful. When I hung up, Amara looked at me. You know this means you have to hit him before he hits you, right? Yes, I said. And I already know how. The first step was money. I spent the day at the bank, moving what little remained in our joint accounts into my personal trust. Every signature felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Every form stamped with authorized was another lock slammed shut on David's schemes. When I walked out, my chest was lighter. He was choking financially now, and he didn't even know it yet. The second step was proof. At home, I scrolled through the footage from my hidden cameras. Clips of him muttering on the balcony, pacing on calls, slamming doors. I labeled each file carefully. Date, time, words. Evidence was no good if it wasn't organized. Then I opened the USB barrister Okoye had given me, the one containing proof of David's fraudulent loan documents. I stared at his forged signature next to mine, the ugly scrawl he thought no one would catch. Rage bubbled in my chest, but I pushed it down. Not yet. By evening, Amara and I sat together making a list of allies. People David had crossed. People who wouldn't hesitate to speak against him. Mrs. Bello at the bank. Claude, the driver. Even one of his old business partners who had once stormed out of a deal calling him a thief. I would build a wall of voices. When the time came, David's lies would collapse under the weight of too much truth. But David wasn't sitting still either. That night, my phone buzzed with a video message. My stomach clenched as I pressed play. David's face filled the screen. He was drunk, eyes bloodshot, lips curling into a smile that wasn't really a smile. You think you've won, Monica? You think freezing my accounts makes you strong? No. You're nothing without me. And tomorrow, I'll remind you of that. You'll see. The video cut off abruptly, leaving only the sound of my own pulse in my ears. I barely slept. Every sound made me jump, the creak of pipes, the hum of cars outside, even Tenny's soft sighs in the next room. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, rehearsing every move. At 3 a.m., my phone pinged again. This time, it wasn't David. It was the anonymous sender who had given me videos before. A message. Check his company office. Tomorrow morning. File cabinet. Bottom drawer. You'll find what you need. I sat up straight, heart racing. At 8 a.m., I dropped Tenny at school, hugged him tighter than usual, and drove straight to David's office building with Amara. The security guard hesitated but let me in when I showed my ID and explained I was collecting personal belongings. The office smelled like dust and arrogance. His desk was cluttered with papers, bills, and an untouched cup of stale coffee. I opened the bottom drawer of the cabinet and froze. Inside was a folder marked with my father's name. I pulled it out, flipped through it, and gasped. He hadn't just forged documents. He had already signed transfer papers, moving my father's land into his company name. The forms were stamped but not yet filed. I held them in my shaking hands. Proof. The smoking gun. Amora's eyes widened. This is it. With this, he's finished. Before I could close the drawer, the office door slammed open. David stood there, eyes bloodshot, face twisted with fury. I knew it, he hissed. I knew you'd come snooping. And now, you're not leaving here with anything. The office door slammed so hard the windows rattled. My heart leapt into my throat as David's silhouette filled the doorway. His gray suit was wrinkled, his tie loose, and his eyes, wild, bloodshot, and full of something darker than anger. I knew it, he growled, his voice low, dangerous. I knew you'd come snooping. You couldn't leave it alone, could you, Monica? My fingers tightened around the folder. Inside were the forged transfer papers, his final attempt to steal everything my father left me. It was the proof that could bury him. Step aside, David, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm leaving with these documents. He laughed, a short, sharp sound that echoed against the walls. Leave. You're not going anywhere. You think you can ruin me? You think you can take my son, my name, my life? His face twisted. I made you. Without me, you're nothing. Amara stepped forward, her voice firm. You need to calm down. The police already know what you've done. Shut up, he barked, slamming his fist against the wall so hard the clock shook and fell. I swallowed hard but didn't move. Fear would only feed him. You tried to push me off a bridge. You bugged our son's room. You threw bricks into windows. And now, you forged my father's signature. It's over, David. You're finished. He lunged forward, snatching at the folder. I stumbled back, clutching it to my chest. Papers spilled across the floor like a storm of secrets. Loan receipts, fake land documents, emails printed out with threats from loan sharks. His face went pale for a fraction of a second before the mask of rage returned. He bent down, scrambling to grab the papers, but Amara kicked one under the desk before he could reach it. You don't understand, he roared, standing tall again. I owe people, Monica. Dangerous people. If I don't pay, they'll come after me. After us. There is no us, I snapped. Not anymore. His nostrils flared. He took one step closer, towering over me. I could smell the alcohol on his breath. If you walk out of this room with those papers, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. I met his eyes and whispered, if I stay, I won't have a life to regret. Just then, footsteps echoed in the hallway. The door swung open again. Two men in black jackets stepped inside, loan enforcers. Their eyes swept the room, landing on David first. You promised us money, one of them said coldly. Where is it? David's shoulders stiffened. I'm handling it. The second man cut him off. We've heard that before. Time's up. The air in the office shifted. Suddenly, David wasn't the predator anymore. He was prey. One of the men noticed the papers scattered across the floor. He bent down, picked one up, and scanned it. His eyes narrowed. Forged land documents. Is this what you were planning to pay us with? David's face drained of color. It's legitimate. I just needed time to finalize. The man slapped the paper against his chest. You've been lying to us. Playing games. Amara gripped my arm. Monica, we need to leave. Now. But David turned to me, desperation in his eyes. Please. Don't go. Help me fix this. They'll kill me if you don't. My chest tightened, not from pity, but from the weight of everything crashing down. He had betrayed me, tried to kill me, and now he wanted me to save him. I shook my head slowly. You made your bed, David. Now lie in it. The men advanced on him. One grabbed his collar, shoving him back against the wall. David struggled, his voice breaking. Wait, please, give me one more chance. While they argued, I dropped to the floor, scooping the spilled papers into the folder. My hands shook, but I managed to gather them all. Amara shielded me with her body as the shouting grew louder. Go, she hissed. I darted toward the door. One of the enforcers turned, blocking my path. His eyes narrowed at me. Who's this? David shouted. She's my wife, she has nothing to do with this. The man smirked. Funny, she's holding the evidence of your lies. His hand shot out toward me, but Amara shoved a chair into his chest. Run, Monica, she screamed. I bolted down the hallway, clutching the folder like a lifeline. Behind me, chaos erupted, David yelling, men cursing, furniture crashing. I burst out onto the street, the Lagos sun blinding me. My breath came in sharp gasps. Amara followed seconds later, her face pale but determined. We have what we need, she said, gripping my shoulders. Now we end this. That night, I scanned every document into my new secured drive. Loan agreements, forged signatures, secret debts, it was all there. Enough to bury David financially and legally. Enough to prove everything. But as I prepared to send them to Barrister Okoye, my phone buzzed again. A video message. I opened it, and froze. It was David, beaten and bloodied, sitting on the floor of his office. One of the loan sharks stood behind him, holding a knife. The man leaned into the camera and said, "If you don't pay us what he owes, we'll collect in another way. Starting with your son." The video cut off. My scream echoed through the apartment. My hands shook as I dialed Barrister Okoye, but before he could answer, another message arrived. Midnight. Abandoned warehouse by the docks. Bring the documents, or the boy disappears. Viewers, if you were Monica, holding all the proof to destroy your husband, but with criminals threatening your child, what would you do? Would you risk everything for justice, or sacrifice it all to save your son? Comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the next gripping chapter. The warehouse loomed by the docks like a shadow that had swallowed the night. Rusted metal sheets rattled in the wind, and the smell of saltwater and oil hung thick in the air. My chest felt like it was caving in with every step I took. Midnight. Exactly as the message instructed. Amara squeezed my arm before we reached the entrance. Are you sure about this, Monica? We could call the police. Let them handle it. I shook my head. If we wait, they'll hurt him, or worse, take Tenny. This is between me, David, and them. I clutched the folder tight against me. My father's legacy and David's destruction pressed to my chest like armor. Inside, the warehouse was dark except for a single overhead bulb casting long, sharp shadows across the floor. And there he was. David. His face was swollen, one eye nearly shut, his shirt torn. He sat slumped on the ground, hands tied behind him, two men standing guard. The third man, the one with the knife in the video, stepped forward when he saw me. You brought the documents? He asked, his voice smooth but edged with steel. I brought what you wanted, I said, lifting the folder. But you'll release my son. He has nothing to do with this. The man smirked. The boy is leverage. Nothing more. If you cooperate, he stays safe. Amara bristled beside me. Cowards, hiding behind a child. The man's hand flashed up, silencing her. Careful. One wrong word, and accidents happen. My knees threatened to buckle, but I forced myself to stand tall. You want these documents? Fine. But know this, they're evidence of David's fraud. If I hand them over to you, I have copies, backups, everywhere. If I disappear, the police get everything. For the first time, the man's smirk faltered. He looked at David. You didn't tell us she was this smart. David groaned, his head lifting weakly. Don't listen to her, she's lying. She doesn't have backups. Shut up, the man barked, striking him across the face with the back of his hand. Something in me snapped at that moment. Not for David. He was reaping what he sowed. But for Tenny. For the way these men thought they could toy with us. You want the truth? I said, stepping closer. David is broke. He has nothing left. The only thing keeping him afloat was me, and I've cut him off. Those documents won't save you. But if you release my son, I'll give you something that will. The man's eyes narrowed. What? I swallowed hard. A deal. My inheritance trust. Not cash, not land, but a way to get your money without blood on your hands. You let my son go, and I'll make sure you get paid, legally without risk. The men exchanged glances. Behind them, David let out a strangled laugh. You see. She's bluffing. She's always bluffing. But the leader studied me, his eyes sharp. I don't think she is. The tension stretched, thick as wire. Then, footsteps echoed from the shadows. And Tenny's cry split the air. Mummy. I whipped around. Another guard appeared, holding my son by the arm. My knees almost gave out, but I forced myself steady. Let him go, I said, my voice shaking with fury. This ends tonight. The man tilted his head. Convince me. I lifted the folder, then ripped it in half, slow, deliberate, so the sound echoed through the warehouse. You kill me, you get nothing. You hurt my son, you get nothing. But you let him go. I walk you straight to the trust. The leader froze. For a long moment, no one moved. Then he barked at his men. Untie the boy. Tenny ran to me, and I dropped to my knees, crushing him against my chest. Tears blurred my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not yet. Smart woman, the man said. We'll be in touch. They pushed David toward me. He stumbled, bloody and broken, but still sneered. You think you won, Monica? You think this ends with your little trust? No. You'll regret crossing me. You'll regret ever being my wife. I stared at him, my voice cold. I already do. As we stepped outside into the night air, flashing red and blue lights suddenly flooded the docks. Police cars screeched to a stop, officers pouring out with guns drawn. The leader of the loan sharks hissed, realizing too late what was happening. And beside me, David whispered, just loud enough for me to hear. You called them. You really want me dead, don't you? The docks erupted in chaos. Red and blue lights flashed against the corrugated metal walls, the wail of sirens drowning out every other sound. Officers shouted commands as they fanned out, weapons raised. Police. Drop your weapons. Hands where we can see them. The loan shark stiffened, caught between fight and flight. The leader's face hardened into stone, his eyes darting between me and the flashing lights. You set us up, he spat. I clutched Tenny tighter, his small arms wrapped around my neck, his heartbeat hammering against mine. No, I said through clenched teeth. You set yourselves up the moment you touched my son. Behind me, Amara held her phone high, recording everything. Evidence. Proof. Another nail in David's coffin. The leader snarled and shoved David forward. Take him. He's the one who owes us. David stumbled, crashing onto the concrete. Wait. Don't. But the officers had already rushed in. One tackled the leader to the ground, twisting his arm behind his back. Another grabbed the man holding the knife. The third guard bolted for the back door but was cut off by more officers swarming in. The warehouse echoed with grunts, shouts, and the clang of metal. And then, silence. The men were on the ground, handcuffed, furious but defeated. I exhaled for the first time in hours, holding Tenny so close he whimpered. "It's okay, baby," I whispered into his hair. "You're safe now." But David wasn't done. He staggered to his feet, blood trickling down his temple, his voice ragged but loud enough to carry. "You think you're safe, Monica? You think these policemen can protect you forever? You ruined me. You turned my own son against me." I turned slowly, my anger finally burning through my fear. "No, David. You ruined yourself. You chose lies. You chose betrayal. You chose violence. And now, you get the consequences." The chief officer stepped forward, reading from a warrant. "David Adewale, you are under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent." "No," David bellowed, lunging toward me. Time slowed. His face twisted, spittle flying, his hands clawing for me. But the officers were faster. They slammed him to the ground, cuffing his wrists behind his back as he thrashed and screamed. "Monica," he roared. "This isn't over. I'll destroy you." I looked down at him, my son trembling in my arms, my voice calm and final. "You already tried. And you failed." As they dragged him toward the patrol car, flashes from journalists' cameras lit the night like fireworks. Reporters had followed the police raid, and now they shouted over one another. "David, do you admit to the fraud? Monica, how does it feel to see your husband arrested?" Was the mistress involved? The mistress, yes. She stood at the edge of the crowd, makeup smeared, eyes wide with horror. For the first time, she wasn't smirking. She looked at me as if realizing she had chosen the wrong side of history. I met her gaze and turned away. She wasn't my problem anymore. By the time dawn broke, the warehouse was empty except for scattered papers and broken glass. The police had taken David and the loan sharks. The reporters had left with their headlines. And me. I stood by the water's edge, holding Tenny's hand, the Lagos sun rising over the horizon. Amara came to my side. "It's over," she said softly. "No," I whispered. "It's just beginning. He may be gone, but I still have to rebuild my life, from the ashes he left behind." Amara's hand slipped into mine. "And you will. Stronger than ever." I watched the waves crash against the dock, remembering the bridge, the moment I almost lost everything. But now, with my son's small hand in mine and my inheritance secured, I knew I had survived. And survival wasn't the end. It was the start. My phone buzzed with a new message. I expected a friend, a reporter, maybe even Okoye. But when I opened it, my blood ran cold. A single photo filled the screen. David, in handcuffs, sitting in the back of the patrol car. His lips twisted into a smile. The message beneath it read, "Prison is just the beginning." The photo of David in handcuffs burned into my eyes long after I closed the message. His smug grin from the back of the police car chilled me to the bone. Prison is just the beginning. It should have been over. He was caught. Arrested. Exposed. But the threat told me something terrifying. David wasn't done. He never would be. I sat on Amara's couch that night with Tenny asleep on my lap, my phone buzzing with updates from reporters and lawyers. Outside, Lagos moved on like nothing had happened. But inside me, a storm raged. How do I stop him for good? I whispered. Amara placed a hand on my shoulder. by making sure he has nothing left to fight with. No money. No influence. No reputation. Strip him to nothing. That's the only way he can't hurt you again. Her words echoed in me. Yes, that was it. He had already lost me. Now he would lose everything else. The next morning, Barrister Okoye called with an update. The fraud evidence you gave me is devastating. With the loan sharks pressing charges too, David's case is airtight. But Monica, you have another card to play. What card? His assets, Okoye said. The cars, the company shares, the accounts still in his name. With what we've uncovered, we can prove they were acquired with your inheritance or under fraudulent pretenses. You can file to seize them all. I exhaled slowly. Do it. Take it all. By the end of the week, the news spread like wildfire. Businessman David Adewole's assets frozen amid fraud scandal. Court grants wife custody and control over family properties. Alleged mistress in question as police expand probe. Social media tore him apart. People who once praised him now dragged his name through the mud. Memes of his arrest photo circulated online. His so-called friends vanished. Meanwhile, I walked into the bank and signed papers transferring full control of the inheritance trust into my name and Tenny's. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. But David wasn't quiet in prison. Through lawyers, he tried to paint himself as the victim, claiming I framed him. But every time he tried, another piece of evidence surfaced. Videos. Recordings. Documents. Even testimonies from his own driver and former partners. The walls were closing in on him. And then, one final blow landed. The mistress, once his biggest cheerleader, turned on him. She released screenshots of their chats to the press, exposing how he promised her my inheritance, how he bragged about getting rid of me, how he laughed about forging signatures. The betrayal that once almost killed me now became his undoing. I remember sitting in the courtroom weeks later as the judge delivered the verdict. David Adewole, for attempted murder, fraud and conspiracy, this court sentences you to 25 years in prison without parole. Gasps filled the room. David stood there, shackled, his face pale and trembling. He turned to me one last time, eyes blazing. "This isn't over, Monica," he spat. "You'll regret this." I didn't flinch. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "The only thing I regret is ever marrying you." The gavel fell. It was over. Outside, the reporters swarmed me again, shoving microphones in my face. "Monica, what's next for you? How does it feel to see justice served? What do you say to other women going through betrayal like this?" I held Tenny's hand, lifted my chin, and answered, "It feels like freedom. It feels like a new beginning. To every woman listening, you are stronger than you think. Don't wait for someone to save you. Save yourself. Take back your life." The cameras flashed, but I didn't care. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. Weeks later, I moved into a smaller but brighter apartment with Tenny. No shadows lurking in the corners. No secrets in the walls. Just peace. I started a small consultancy using part of my inheritance, something that allowed me to work from home and be with my son. One evening, as we ate dinner together, Tenny looked up at me and asked, "Mummy, are we happy now?" Tears pricked my eyes, but I smiled. "Yes, baby. We're happy. And we're safe." The bridge where David almost ended my life still stands over the roaring river. Sometimes, I drive past it, the memory pressing against me like cold air. But I don't tremble anymore. Because I know who I am now. I am Monica. I survived betrayal, lies, and attempted murder. I lost a husband, but I kept my life, and I built it again, stronger. And as the sun sets over Lagos, painting the city gold, I whisper to myself. This is my beginning. My freedom. My revenge. Viewers, Monica took back her inheritance, her dignity, and her freedom. What would you have done if you were in her shoes? Fight until the very end, or walk away quietly? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let us know where in the world you're watching from. And if this story touched you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because your story matters too.